story to tell you, then you need to tell me, okay? Your mom's dead, okay?
From the day Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born, her life was marked by pain.
What I want to ask you is, your mom's passed away, okay? And she's deceased, all right? Now, what I want to ask you, did you have involvement in it?
At least, that is what her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, told everyone. Gypsy was shown as a sick child who could not walk, who suffered from countless illnesses, and who needed constant medical care. Neighbors saw a fragile girl in a wheelchair, with oxygen tubes and a mother always by her side. Doctors performed surgeries, prescribed heavy medicines, and treated her for diseases that never seemed to end. But behind this picture of a sick child was a hidden truth. Gypsy was not as weak as the world believed. She could walk, talk, and live like any normal girl her age. Yet her mother forced her to stay in the chair, shaved her head, and convinced her she was ill. Dee Dee told Gypsy that her life depended on her care, making her feel helpless and trapped. Every hospital visit, every charity donation, and every sympathetic look from strangers added to the image Dee Dee had built. For Gypsy, the world was a cage. She lived in pain, not from sickness, but from her mother's lies. She wanted freedom, but fear kept her silent. This was the beginning of a story that would shock the nation. Mother's control, Dee Dee Blanchard, ruled every part of Gypsy Rose Blanchard's life. From what she ate to what she wore, nothing was truly her own choice. Dee Dee told doctors Gypsy had leukemia, muscular dystrophy, seizures, and even brain damage. Each lie pulled Gypsy deeper into a world where she was not trusted with her own body. She was forced to use a wheelchair even though she could walk. And her mother's strict watch made it impossible to tell anyone the truth. Dee Dee even controlled Gypsy's age, lying about her birth year, so she appeared younger and more dependent. The house they lived in was seen as a dream home, built for a sick child, but inside it felt more like a prison. Dee Dee never let Gypsy go anywhere alone. Phone calls, friendships, even online activities were tightly monitored. If Gypsy asked questions, Dee Dee silenced her with guilt or fear. She warned that without her, Gypsy would die. Doctors often trusted Dee Dee's words, and when some grew suspicious, Dee Dee quickly changed hospitals or moved away. Gypsy lived under constant control with no voice of her own. Every smile she showed the world hid the truth of her fear. Dee Dee's control was not just about care, it was about power. Gypsy was trapped in a life designed to keep her weak, helpless, and forever tied to her mother. A life of lies for years, Gypsy Rose Blanchard lived inside a world built on falsehoods. Dee Dee Blanchard created story after story about her daughter's health, weaving a web of lies so large that even Gypsy herself began to believe parts of it. Dee Dee told people Gypsy had the mind of a 7-year-old, though she was already a teenager. She told doctors about seizures that never happened and claimed illnesses that never existed. Wheelchairs, feeding tubes, medications, and endless hospital visits became Gypsy's daily reality, all staged to keep up the act. To the outside world, Dee Dee was seen as a devoted mother sacrificing everything for her sick child. Charities paid for trips to Disney World, free flights, and even a new home. Neighbors brought food and gifts, believing they were helping a dying girl. But the truth was darker. Gypsy was forced to smile through the lies, hiding her ability to walk, hiding her real age, and hiding her growing questions. Late at night, when her mother slept, Gypsy would dream of freedom, wondering if life outside her mother's control was possible. She felt trapped in a body that was healthy, but treated as broken. Each lie told by Dee Dee became another chain around Gypsy's life. And the longer it went on, the more impossible escape seemed. The hidden truth: as Gypsy Rose Blanchard grew older, small cracks began to appear in Dee Dee Blanchard's carefully built story. Neighbors sometimes noticed that Gypsy's legs were stronger than they looked. A few doctors quietly questioned Dee Dee's claims, pointing out that test results did not match her stories. Yet Dee Dee always had an answer, often moving to another hospital or finding a new specialist before the truth could catch up. Still, Gypsy herself began to sense that something was wrong. She secretly practiced walking at night, when her mother was asleep, and felt the strength in her own body. The internet became Gypsy's secret doorway to a bigger world. She discovered that she was not as young as her mother claimed. Old documents, medical papers, and even her own memories did not match Dee Dee's version of her life. She began to understand that her illnesses were not real, but carefully invented. With each discovery, anger and confusion grew inside her. Why would her mother do this? Why keep her locked away in a life of lies? Gypsy realized that the world saw her as a victim of disease, but her true sickness was her mother's control. The hidden truth was not that she was dying, but that she had never been free. That truth would soon drive Gypsy to make choices that changed everything. Love and escape for Gypsy Rose Blanchard, The internet was more than just a secret, it was a lifeline. Late at night, while Dee Dee slept, Gypsy explored chat rooms and online spaces where she could be herself. It was there she met Nicholas Gojon, a man with his own troubled past, but someone who listened to her in ways no one else ever had. To Gypsy, he was more than a boyfriend. He was a doorway to freedom. Their online romance grew quickly, filled with whispered dreams of a life far from Dee Dee's control. With Nicholas, Gypsy felt brave enough to imagine escape. They exchanged messages about running away together, about living as a couple without fear. For the first time, Gypsy had someone who believed in her strength instead of her sickness. But love soon became mixed with desperation. Gypsy knew Dee Dee would never let her go. Every attempt to assert herself had ended with punishment, guilt, or another lie. So, instead of planning a quiet escape, Gypsy and Nicholas began discussing a darker solution. What started as love turned into a dangerous idea, an idea that if her mother was gone, she could finally live free. Gypsy's hope for escape grew into a plan that would forever change her story. The deadly plan as Gypsy Rose Blanchard and Nicholas Gojon's secret relationship deepened, their conversations turned darker. Escape seemed impossible while Dee Dee Blanchard controlled every detail of Gypsy's life. The lies, the punishments, and the constant fear left Gypsy desperate. Together, she and Nicholas formed a plan, not to run, but to end Dee Dee's rule forever. For Gypsy, it felt like the only way to finally breathe freely. She convinced herself that murder was the only escape from the prison her mother had built. They carefully plotted in secret messages. Gypsy would unlock the door, Nicholas would carry out the act. On that June night in 2015, the plan became reality. As Dee Dee slept in her bed, Nicholas entered the house with a knife. Gypsy hid in the bathroom, covering her ears, as her mother's life ended just feet away. The house that once echoed with Dee Dee's controlling voice fell silent. For the first time, Gypsy felt both terrified and free. She and Nicholas fled, believing they could now start a new life together. But the plan that freed Gypsy also left behind blood, suspicion, and a trail that would soon lead police straight to them. The deadly plan had worked, but its consequences were only beginning. Murder unfolds the morning after Dee Dee Blanchard's death. The quiet neighborhood in Springfield, Missouri, was shaken. Friends and neighbors who had long admired Dee Dee's devotion to her sick daughter suddenly noticed her house was strangely silent. Worried, they called the police. Inside, officers found Dee Dee's body, stabbed to death, and Gypsy Rose Blanchard missing. At first, many feared Gypsy had been kidnapped. Social media posts from Gypsy's account added to the chaos, with cryptic messages suggesting something terrible had happened. The community, once filled with sympathy, now filled with fear. It did not take long for the truth to surface. Investigators traced the online posts back to Nicholas Gojon, leading them to Wisconsin, where Gypsy and Nicholas were hiding. When police found them, the shocking truth began to unravel. Gypsy was not the frail, disabled child everyone believed her to be. She could walk, she could talk, and she was healthier than anyone imagined. The story of a kidnapped victim quickly turned into a chilling tale of abuse, control, and murder. The murder had unfolded not as a random act of violence, but as the final chapter of years of deception. The world now saw Gypsy not only as a victim, but also as a participant in a crime that stunned the nation. Justice and aftermath. The arrest of Gypsy Rose Blanchard and Nicholas Gojon shocked the nation. For years, Gypsy had been a fragile, sick child. Now the world learned she had been trapped in a cycle of abuse called Munchausen by proxy, where Dee Dee Blanchard fabricated illnesses to control her daughter. When the truth came out, public opinion split. Some saw Gypsy as a cold-blooded killer. Others saw her as a desperate victim who had no other way out. The courts had to decide where justice truly lay. In 2016, Gypsy accepted a plea deal for second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nicholas, who carried out the stabbing, faced trial later and was sentenced to life without parole. Yet the story did not end inside the courtroom. Documentaries, interviews, and news reports kept the case alive, painting Gypsy as both a victim and an offender. In prison, Gypsy spoke about feeling freer than she ever did at home with her mother. The aftermath left a nation questioning how such abuse could go unnoticed for so long. Gypsy's revenge was not just the end of her mother's control. It was the start of a wider conversation about hidden abuse, survival, and the heavy cost of freedom.